Alright folks, how you doing? Welcome back. So this is The Borders, Part 2 from When Scotland Was Jewish. Disclaimer, under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use. Along the borders. Other noble families residing along the borders at this time had also come from mainland Europe. They included the Avenels, the Sulles, Riddles, Balials, and the progenitor of the Stuart family. It was a nobility that was multilingual, sophisticated, well-travelled, and intensely endogamous, and Jewish. Although Scotland is often depicted as primitive, this assessment rests on an inaccurate perception. A market at Roxburgh. It is highly likely that there was a market at Roxburgh for some considerable time before 1113. What converted a local market into an international trading centre was the dynamic trade in wool and hides. The stimulus for this change came from Flanders and northern Italy, where cloth and leather goods began to be produced in industrial quantities for re-export as well as domestic consumption. Melrose and Kelso. What created this demand for raw wool and hides was the first effective deployment of merchant capital. Merchants from the cities of Bruges, Ghent and elsewhere had sufficient capital to buy bulk quantities of wool and hides at the summer and autumn markets at Roxburgh, and the abbeys of Melrose and Kelso could guarantee that these raw materials would be available. The Cistercians at Melrose. The Cistercians at Melrose could act like a corporation and wield considerable power in the marketplace. The Melrose monks were urbane and experienced negotiators with access to information on prices and conditions of trade in other wool-producing areas of Europe. Cargoes from Europe included sugar, pepper, cumin, onions, garlic, currants, ginger, almonds, rice, basil, alum, dyestuffs, metal pans, cauldrons, locks, timber, and iron. In Berwick, I'm presuming this is Berwick-Upon-Tweed. In Flanders and northern Italy, merchants fed the wool into their cloth production network. Production went on in hundreds of workshops in the towns and cities. Numbers employed could be very large, and for example, at Douai in the 13th century, there were 150 merchant drapers, each employing 100 people. 15 religious houses, all of them producers of wool and hides, held properties in Berwick, and there the foreign merchants maintained places of business. Flemish Trading Centre. These resembled the factories of English traders in colonial India, where a sort of diplomatic immunity was allowed, and where outsiders could live in communal safety. The Red Hall was the name of the Flemish trading centre at Berwick. German merchants were to be found at the White Hall, and in Roxburgh, a place called the Black Hall is listed, but no particular nationality attached. Michael the Scot. By 1212 Common Era, Berwick's lucrative trade had moved into private hands. Provosts and registered guild burgesses regulated the commercial operations of the town, the guild hall being built on land purchased from one Simon Mansell. That same decade, a man we have already mentioned, Michael the Scot, likely from Melrose, was at the University of Toledo in northern Spain, translating Aristotelian manuscripts written in Arabic into Latin. Roxburgh Castle. Michael served as a multilingual translator in Sicily and Palermo as well. In 1378, a master mason, John Lewin, was hired to refurbish the walls of Roxburgh Castle. Around 1400, a Parisian master mason, Jean Moreau, or Moore, was commissioned to enlarge Melrose Abbey. These trade patterns, capabilities, and names were most common to two ethnic groups at the time, Spanish Moors and Sephardic Jews. Jews and Muslims. Not only did Islamic mercantilism far surpass that of Western Europe and Christendom, but Jews were well represented in all branches of European business and industry, with the possible exception of agriculture and foodstuffs preparation. Jews and Muslims came to dominate such fields as banking, shipping, chemicals and pharmaceuticals, glass, silk and paper manufacture, the book trade, and jewellery and precious stones during this time period. So that wraps up The Borders, Parts 2, and overall, come to that. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you again the next time. As always, feel free to leave your thoughts and comments down below.